Hi, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily with me, Dr. Russell Sharp. Yesterday, we did a checklist for all the items you need when starting your first ever indoor grow, hydroponic grow. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to this because this is following on from that. And this is all the tips that we recommend to new growers take on board when they are starting their first grow. So it's not a step-by-step guide. It's just some handy hints. These are the most common issues that first-time growers fall into, the certain sorts of issues. And the first one is get yourself down to a local grow shop, hydroponic specialist, and build up a rapport with them. If you go in there and they're standoffish, they seem like they're too cool for school or they're not your type of person, then go find another grow shop if you can. And it's important you build up a rapport with them because there should be a really good source of information for you and expertise. And if they're not, then go somewhere else. So the closest grow shop here, you go in there and they know nothing about growing. It's one of a number of businesses located at that place. So we never go in there. We always go to somewhere else. So somewhere like, I won't name any names because it might upset other people, but there are a number of grow shops around here. And obviously, don't go on Amazon and buy some crappy, cheap equipment or on eBay and then go into your grow shop and say, how do I get this to work? That is one way to really annoy a grow shop, is say, I bought this on Amazon or eBay for £30 cheaper than I could get it from you. Because they've got the expense of retail outlets, they've got other expenses, and they're there to help you with your grow. And so don't insult them by bringing in stuff that you've bought on Amazon or even mentioning it. You will pay a premium, perhaps. You might pay 10% more. If that, you might even price match to Amazon. It's just the fact that you have to go to the store to get it. I would definitely always buy from a grow shop if you don't know what you're doing. They'll give you advice on something might seem ridiculously expensive, but they'll tell you why that's more expensive than the Chinese LED that claims to be 1,000 watts on eBay, and then you get it and it's a glorified fridge light, something like that. So that's the top tip. Go to your grow shop, find one you like, and build up a relationship with them. The second tip is have patience when it comes to seed germination. You'll see a lot of people recommending the paper towel technique. I am not a fan of the paper towel technique for seed germination because I don't think it helps plant health. All it does is it gives people peace of mind that their seeds are germinating earlier. So if you sow directly into the grow media, then you will see the seeds emerge maybe 3 days later than you would with the paper towel method. And you might think, well, I want to know if my really expensive seeds germinated. It doesn't really matter. They're seeds. They're only going to do one of two things. They're either dead at the point you bought them, or they're going to germinate and grow. You looking at them and looking at the roots and exposing the roots to light, which they don't like, is not going to help them. And the transplant shock at such a young age is going to really harm them and could shock them, and they could do things. They could, if they were female plants, they could turn into hermaphrodites and produce seeds if you didn't want to do that and things like that. So always have patience. Don't be poking around in the grow media, even if they've not appeared for a week. They're either going to germinate or they're not. And if they haven't germinated after 2 weeks, then I would start poking around. And if the seeds are there in an ungerminated form after 2 weeks of being well watered, then you can go back to the seed company and ask for a refund or credit. Obviously, you don't need to water your germinated seeds every day. You just need to water them once, maybe again a few days later. And you don't even need to soak the seeds. Don't be worrying about soaking your seeds on your first grow. I did a trial with a number of seeds, and soaking the seeds didn't help. And a lot of people believe it actually hinders them. So just sow them in the grow media. And then my next tip is, once they've germinated, is check on the underside of your leaves for pests every single day. Every day, lift a few leaves up and look for pests, because if you get them early, you'll be able to control them a lot easier. And if you're a beginner, then controlling them will be difficult. Having said that, don't water every day. So just because the top 1 millimeter of soil might have dried out doesn't mean that the soil below it is dry. And you don't need to be watering to contain a capacity. The plants will thrive perfectly well at 3/4 of the water holding capacity, as long as they're not bone dry. And then water every few days. And then the bigger the plants get, the more that thirsty they will get. So you might think, well, I really want to water my plants. Soon enough, you'll be watering your plants. You'll be getting sick of watering and fertigating your plants. Fertigation is the word that is fertilizer plus irrigation. So when you mix that and do that every day, we call it watering, but there'll be fertilizer in there. You'll soon get bored of doing that after weeks and weeks and weeks. So don't be in a rush to water every day. Next tip is to create a stable temperature. That will help grow your plants. It'll help keep them really happy, making sure you don't run to extremes. So at night, if you're growing in winter, if you don't have a max min thermometer, you might not realize this, but the plants can get very cold when the lights go off. And if you're on a concrete base, then the cold can come up through the roots. Now, create a stable temperature is one of the easiest things to do, and it's the most beneficial. Creating a stable humidity, that can be more difficult, and you can fly from one extreme to the other if you're not careful. And as long as it's not noticeably really, really damp or really, really dry in your growing environment, then I wouldn't worry too much about humidity on my first grow. And then if you're using gold leaf as your fertilizer, or liquid gold as it's called in the UK, I wouldn't be worried about pH. Just ignore that for now, because gold leaf will take care of that. It'll always be in the sweet spot. And because pH, if you start messing around with pH, they can fly. If you're using standard hydroponic fertilizers, the pH can fly from one extreme to the other as well really quickly. Trying to pH water, that chemists will tell you, trying to pH water is extremely difficult, and you just fly from one extreme to the other. So don't try and do that. I would get an EC pen, as I've talked about numerous times on this podcast. Electrical conductivity, that measures how much nutrition is in the water. So you can benchmark that when you've added your fertilizer, and always add that certain amount or go up as the plants mature. But EC pens are more important for measuring the electrical conductivity of the water coming out. And you always want to get 10 to 20% of what you add in volume of water or fertigation solution coming out the bottom as runoff, because that means that you're getting fresh nutrition going through the roots. It might seem wasteful, but it prevents you building up salts in the root system and stunting growth. And that can be that's really common in the first-time growers. Over-fertilizing and over-fertilization, over-salting is far more common than under-fertilizing. And over-watering, far more common than under-watering. When you are watering, be really careful of exposing roots. So don't just get a watering can and then just plonk it down as fast as you can on the root system. If you expose the roots, then walk away, those roots will dry out and die. So be careful, use a rose if you've got a rose on the end of a watering can that turns it into like rain, or water from the bottom, and then the roots will soak that up. But be careful not to leave the plants sitting in water in the sources for more than an hour or two, because they'll soon develop anaerobic conditions and harm the roots. If you've got a photoperiodic plant and you need to flip from vegetative to flowering, do that earlier rather than later. You're in a world of pain if you've got a plant that's going to grow really high and hit the LED lights, or even worse, sodium lamps, and you haven't flipped the photoperiod too early enough. So you'll see people on Reddit saying, is it ready to flip to flowering? And you go, oof, you are in for a world of pain there. You might as well stop and start again, really. And then again, people you see on Reddit in hydroponic threads, is it ready to harvest? Am I ready to harvest? And really, you need to consult an expert and really do your research on that, and do your research on trimming and formation and harvesting and all this. That's very, very complicated, or can be. It's not a simple horticultural. It's post-harvest technology, and I'll stay well out of that for now. Then the final two tips are with safety. As I've said, you've got you've got a few dangers in the growing room that you need to be aware of, even if you're a beginner. The first being the electricity. I've talked about this on the previous podcast. Make sure that your sockets are away from your water, make them higher up, away from your plants. This is the one thing that can kill you. So, show it a good deal of, what's the word? Good grace? No, is that a word? I don't know. Reverence. There's the reverence. The electricity and water don't mix well. Lights, high-powered LEDs or sodiums, don't look directly at them, and get yourself some specialist glasses, or at the very least, some good sunglasses, so that you protect your eyes, because they can be extremely powerful, and your retinas and your eyes can be dilated and still receive a lot of light because they're not the same as sunlight. Another safety issue is always, if you're using a humidifier, be wary of Legionnaires and biofilm buildup. Regularly clean it out and use a sterilizing agent, something like Clear Mist in the UK, to clear out the humidifier and make sure it's not got Legionnaires. Legionnaires is a big issue in grow rooms, and it's underappreciated in hydroponics. You've got to remember, especially warm grow rooms, you've got lots of moisture that's being kept constantly close to body temperature, and that's the perfect environment for Legionnaires to thrive. And then imagine a humidifier that's then sprinkling air droplets into the air that can then be breathed into your lungs. That's the perfect example of perfect conditions for Legionnaires. And Legionnaires is a horrific disease. It's one of the worst ways to die, along with paracetamol overdose. Absolutely horrific, painful death. It was once described to me as, Legionnaires is everywhere. It's in the environment, but normally it's like a toddler hitting you on the leg. And then when you get the perfect conditions for Legionnaire's growth, it's like Mike Tyson hitting you in the forehead with a hammer. It's really going to absolutely knock you and kill, potentially more than likely kill you. So always show good deal of reverence to electricity, the lights, and anywhere where you're going to get mist, a warm mist, constant mist. So that's been my top tips for beginners. Oh, and then there's one from my colleague Matthew, and his top tip is don't overthink it. So don't overthink controlling the environment. Don't overthink everything. If you think you've got an obscure micronutrient deficiency, you probably haven't. You can quickly get overcome with so many interactions, and what happens if this impacts this and that impacts that and that impacts that. Just keep it simple, and you'll have a good grow. So if you need any more tips, if you want any advice on your first time grow, then please do contact us. We're always happy to help and answer any grower questions. Thank you very much for listening, and please follow so that you can build up your knowledge from your first grow and many multiple grows thereafter. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.